Welcome to How to Lose the Weight, the podcast for women ready to stop waiting for someday and live life now. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini, and I'm here to help you break free from perfectionism, self-doubt, and the someday mindset. Together, we'll dive into real conversations about self-trust, empowerment, and living authentically. If you're ready to reconnect with your intuition and step into your power, you're in the right place. Let's lose the weight and start living fully right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How to Lose the Weight. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini, and today we're talking about what happens after you've done a lot of your healing work. Maybe you've been to therapy, you've read the books, you understand the patterns in your trauma, and you're not where you were 10 or 20 years ago, but you still feel like something's blocking you from fully living as the person you know you are. You're functioning, you're even fine, but you're not quite free. My guest today knows that place extremely well. Kathy Kwiatkowski is a licensed mental health counselor with 35 years experience helping people recover from trauma. Now, over time, her own healing work led her beyond traditional talk therapy into energy work, hypnosis, and quantum healing. And these modalities really helped her reconnect with her true essence and what she calls her brilliance. She's a multidimensional healer, a certified life between lives hypnotherapist, quantum consciousness facilitator, Reiki master, and energy medicine practitioner. And she's been featured on Amazon Prime and Gaia TV. And she's the author of the best-selling book, Stand in Your Brilliance, a transformative guide to overcome life's challenges and remember the truth of who you are. And today, we're going to talk about what multidimensional healing actually is, how it works with trauma, maybe how you know if you're ready for things like past life regression or life between lives, and what changes when you start living from your brilliance instead of your wounding. She'll also share how you can go deeper through her book, the Stand in Your Brilliance 7-week course, and an upcoming free webinar. So if you've done the work and you're wondering what's next, this episode is for you. Kathy, welcome to How to Lose the Weight. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you, Holly. I am thrilled to be here to talk to your listeners about how to bust free to that next level. Yeah.
Terrific. Now, if it's okay, I want to start with something you say about your work. You call yourself a multidimensional healer. And for my listeners who are maybe new to that kind of language, what does multidimensional healing actually mean in practical terms?
It means that you're healing wounding from this current incarnation and healing across time and space. Now, what does that mean? That means other incarnations in human bodies where you've experienced trauma and anything from those experiences that's still active in your energy field can be cleared out. Trauma that your ancestors have experienced that is also in your field can be cleared out. Multidimensional healing can mean going to the aspect of you that's incarnated on other planets and accessing resources that that aspect of you has that can offer healing to you here. So there's lots of it. It's basically traveling into the quantum field and working with every aspect of you across time and space.
And people thought they were just bothered in this life. I'm glad you brought that up about multi-dimensions, right? It's not just about who I am in this life and this body, but perhaps what I've brought with me, good and bad, right? That we can sort of reclaim and clear and heal.
Absolutely. We have resources in our other lifetimes, especially people who are drawn to do healing work. Oftentimes they've been healers in other lifetimes and they may be, their healing abilities in those other lifetimes can be brought into this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about clearing wounding, it's also about accessing resources.
Right. Now, how would you say it's different than maybe the traditional training you got as a counselor early in your career?
Right. So as a trauma therapist, I use, and I still do occasionally, MDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, a therapy called lifespan integration, and then another one that's brain-based, very long name. The acronym is SIMS, which stands for Complex Integration of Multiple Brain Systems. So basically, in those therapies, you're working with the brain and the nervous system to move out trauma information that's been stored in your system from experiences in your current lifetime, right? So I did that for years and years. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. What about the things that are stored from other lifetimes? So it's now when I do trauma therapy, oftentimes I'll start by helping people to expand their awareness into the more expansive aspects of themselves and then bring that into now. And it just kind of speeds up the process. All of those therapies are fantastic. And depending on how the therapist is doing it,
Yeah.
they are actually bringing in the energy of the quantum field if they're doing that intentionally.
What did you start noticing in yourself or in your clients that made you realize talk therapy alone wasn't enough?
I think actually what happened was I got exposed to these other things, and then I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole nother level to this. Now, the thing is, if you have a lot of trauma in your system, you may, and if you're not able to regulate your nervous system, at least some, like if you feel pulled off of your center all the time, then some traditional work around strengthening up the nervous system, strengthening up your ability to regulate your emotions needs to happen first, generally, usually, you know. But a lot of times I decide that intuitively with the person I'm working with. Like I talk about, here's your options. How does that feel to you? And people who aren't really ready yet, they know. They'll be like, hmm. I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
A lot of people listening have probably done therapy of some kind. I don't know how anybody could have survived the pandemic without it, but a lot of people have, read the self-help books and the personal development books, and they're self-aware, but they still feel really stuck in these same sort of emotional patterns. For somebody like that, how would you explain why working beyond the purely mental level matters?
Well, because what that pattern is, like, let's say it's over drinking. Let's use that as an example. They maybe have done everything in therapy to really kind of get at what's the core of that, like what's my trigger, and they may have cleared and healed the triggers from this lifetime. But if that is connected to ancestors, or if it's connected to other incarnations, you're not clearing that. So it's still going to be there in your field, and whatever is in your energy field influences how you think and the emotions that you have.
Yeah, that's really fascinating because, people often talk about familial patterns, like, oh, everybody in my family does this or that. But I think what they don't understand is there are also soul patterns that come through and that we are continuing to work on from one lifetime to another. What kind of work do you usually do when you recognize that this is a bigger issue than just a generational thing? Maybe it's a soul ancestor or something like that kind of thing that you
Right.
need to work on.
So when it gets to that level, that's when a lot of times the life between lives work can help. Because when you do a life between lives session, you move fully into your soul state and you can connect with the information around what your plan was when you came in this time, what you were wanting to be working on, what lessons you were wanting to be learning. And so, you can gain that information there.
So, one of the questions I hear a lot with the people I work with is when we start talking about things like past life regression is how do I know I'm ready for that? Am I healed enough? Am I going to open up something I'm maybe not prepared for? What would you say to that?
That second one, it comes up a lot. It's like,
Okay.
what if I see something that I don't really wanna see? What if I open up something that I can't handle, right? And so, again, because of my clinical training, I kinda combine that with the intuitive piece to feel into, are they ready? Because if there is something in another incarnation that was traumatic, you want it to not completely throw the person off in their current lifetime, right? So we think of past lives as in the past, like linearly. But what quantum science tells us is that it's all happening now. So it's more like a layer cake.
Okay.
And so if you have trauma happening in another incarnation, and if you go into that aspect of you, you can bring resources to that aspect of you. You can bring comfort to that aspect of you. So I always say that wherever you're taken on your journey, it's where your higher self and the guides know, like, this is your next piece of work. Right? And so they'll take you to the place that's gonna be most helpful. My first past life, I went straight to a trauma. I was
Can
like,
you share more about
"Awesome,
that? What
awesome."
was it?
It explained so many things to me, even though it was hard to see. First off, if there's something really difficult happening in a past life when you drop in, you can rise above the scene and look at it from above. So it's not like you're reliving it in the moment. There's ways to work with that. And of course, my trauma training, that's what we do in regular trauma therapy too sometimes when you're working on something that's happened in your current lifetime and it's just in EMDR, we look at it. We don't relive it, so to speak. We're looking at it and moving the information. So it's the same thing as that, only you're working with the energy of another incarnation, but same process.
Mhm.
And then the energy moves through your body as well. And people feel that. Like, they feel the energy shifting in the physical body that's sitting in the chair, even though we're working with another lifetime.
Wow.
So, yeah, what if I see something really hard for me to see? I say, yay, because you're carrying it around with you anyway. So, why wouldn't you want to clear that? It's all about clearing it out. And why is it about that? Because when you clear out the difficult things that have happened in your life, which created your belief system and feeds into the emotional struggles that you have. When you clear all of that out, you return to your authentic self, the part of you that is your brilliance that doesn't hold any of that.
So, how do you know, both as a therapist and a multidimensional healer, when somebody's actually ready for this kind of work? Are there signs you look for that say, okay, this person needs more foundational support first, or this person is ready for soul level work? How do you differentiate?
Well, there are some main things that I ask. For instance, I always get a history if anybody's had psychotic breaks or delusional symptoms, because those tend to be kind of red flags, at least yellow flags around if you can't stay fully in. If your psyche's too fragile to stay present, then it can be really challenging. So if you're someone who dissociates a lot, my starting place would be, how can we help you to dissociate less? Because when you do these processes, you're not dissociating, but you are going to a whole different level of awareness. You got to be able to maintain an awareness of who you are in present time at the same time. It's a dual awareness thing.
So, on the other side, are there signs that somebody has actually outgrown staying only in traditional talk therapy and they're really ready to move on to a deeper realm?
Absolutely. Those people tend to be the ones who contact me because they've worked through a lot of what's happened in their current life. Their soul's already saying, watch this webinar, listen to this podcast. So it's activating in their system, right? Because when I mean, our spirit's always with us. It is the energy that runs through us, it expands beyond us, but we're not always aware that it's there. And so the people that are really ready are the ones that's like, I can feel it. I know who I am. I know I have this spirit. I know it's powerful. I just don't know what to do with it. Like, what am I the main reason why people do life between lives and quantum work, it's because I know I'm meant to be doing something here that's going to be powerful, but I don't know how to tap into it consistently or what it's meant to be. And that's my wheelhouse.
So, are life between lives and quantum healing the same? And if not, how are they different?
They're different. So I'll explain the difference. The process is different. With the quantum work, there's multiple options in terms of how you approach it. When I do a quantum session, I support the person in expanding out into the quantum field through a series very specific words that have been used over and over and over again that we know will cue the mind to relax and the awareness to expand. Once in the quantum field, there's lots of different options. You can access the realm of your other incarnations in human bodies. You can access the realm of incarnation of you on another planet. You can access the realm of your ancestors. There's lots of different directions that you can go in. And you can do all of that, a quantum session, in an hour. Some people a longer one is 3 hours where you go to lots of places, right? So it all depends on what you wanna get out of it. And really the focus in a quantum session is to connect with these other aspects in the quantum field to receive wisdom and guidance and healing. Both of those things, the wisdom and the healing, can go in either direction, right? So like I said, you have somebody if there's an aspect of you in another human body who could really use your support right now, they're gonna come forward for you to support them, right? So it's much more about connecting with aspects of you in all of these different ways, right? Think of it as your own little universe, and you're going into your own little universe to really connect with all of you, okay? Life between lives, generally, people come to do that. Number one, they've read the books about it. And so they're super curious. And in fact, reading Michael Newton's Journey of Souls was my awakening. Like, as I read it, I was like, this is true. Like, I just knew it, right? So folks who come for that, yes, they do receive healing always. When you move into the spiritual realm, I have yet to have a session where somebody doesn't receive some kind of healing. And I don't even always know where it's coming from. It might be coming from their higher self, from other entities, from source itself. It just happens. Okay. It's a vibrational recalibration, but the quantum is as well. In an LBL, there's an opportunity or a possibility to connect with other souls who are in your soul group. A lot of people are interested in that. There's an opportunity to connect with people in your current life or people who have already transitioned with their souls to kind of connect soul to soul, which is fascinating. Like, think about the implications of that from a marriage counseling standpoint. It's like, my husband is driving me crazy. I want to go meet his soul and figure
To get to the bottom of this.
I know, right? Because on the soul level, it's completely different. It's like, "Oh my gosh, you are amazing." Right? It's your human aspect that's driving me crazy. Anyway, soul group, but the thing about well, both of them actually, how they're similar is you are moving into the essence of your soul, which I call your brilliance. So for both, you get the felt experience of who you really are. Images can come through about what your soul looks like. You can find out in an LBL. Sometimes it becomes very clear, like what your soul color is. And Michael Newton, who developed the technique, also kind of mapped out, depending on your soul color, how advanced your soul is. In an LBL, it's a lot about if you have questions about your life, you can ask those questions and get guidance. A lot of times the guidance is coming from your own higher self. Other times it's coming from wise elder guides who come and greet you and answer your questions for you. Yeah. So they're different in the process, different in terms of what people are their intention for what they wanna get from their journey, and so, in terms of figuring out which one we do, I spend a big chunk of time at the beginning getting very clear on what do you want what are you hoping your outcome will be,
Mhm.
and then we get a sense, we get our own guidance as to which is gonna be the direction to go in. A lot of
Got it.
people do both. A lot of people do both, yeah.
So, do you blend those modalities, like, into one session, or would it be, like, we're gonna do life between lives this time and some Reiki the next time or some multidimensional healing this time? How does that work?
So I do blend them. I generally will start with an assessment of what's going on with somebody's energy, and doing things like a full chakra clearing, teaching techniques for clearing your energy. So I try to kind of clear the deck first energetically because then other things will flow more easily. I have a lot of practical techniques I teach people about how to feel their energy, how to get a sense of it, what's going on with it, things like that. And then as far as doing the quantum and the LBL, used to be LBL was strict LBL, but now I kind of blend some quantum guidance and languaging into the LBL. Quantum kind of is its own thing. I don't blend LBL into quantum. It's not like guides show up in a quantum, although sometimes people, when they do a quantum, they just go through a portal and they are in a space and we just explore what happens in that space. So we always set an intention going in, and there's two reasons for the intention. First off, it gives us a focus. Second off, we use language that already shifts to a higher vibration. So you're going in with this intention that's a very high vibrational intention, which just cues the system like how to work with the process. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, for the person listening who's curious but maybe a little nervous, what would you say to them about the safety of doing this and how to know when they're ready to do this kind of work?
Well, the first thing I always say is that when with these processes, the way that it's done is we set the intention that we are only moving into the realms of highest love and light. So, usually what makes people nervous is like if something that is not, something that's more evil, something that's more dark comes in. Generally, if that happens, we ask that entity, who are you and what do you need? Why are you showing up this way? Because usually they are kind of lost. They haven't found their way to the light. So there can be this kind of subplot around helping other souls find their way back to the light.
It's interesting.
Right. I do have people say to me, I feel like there's a thing called in the work, they call them attachments, like energy attachments,
Yeah, I've heard of that.
energy passengers, so to speak, like they've gotten into your field and they can activate when you move to a higher vibration. And that can feel uncomfortable because they're not vibrating there. So it gives us the opportunity to go, oh, there's something in your field. We don't know when you got it. We don't know when you picked it up, but it's there. So now we're just going to release it. And this is something that, um, I, that if you've had trauma in your life, um, the lower energy of the other can kind of get stuck in your field. So you would want to get that out.
So it sounds like you encourage people to look at this as a way of addressing and understanding the issue instead of just being afraid of it.
Right, right. Now, if the fear is coming from religious dogma, I mean, I'm very upfront with people. I say, yes, there are lower energies. And, when you set the intention that we're going to highest love and light, you're calling in the angels and the archangels and God to facilitate your journey. The light is always stronger than the darkness, right? And so we might spend a session talking about those fears and getting to a place where the person feels comfortable. Generally, if they're really not ready, they're going to know they're not ready. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that people that come to work with you have already done a lot of this type of work, or is there a large portion of your clientele that's just brand new to all of this?
Let me think about that for a second. I would say most of them have not done much of it. There's a small percentage who come that they've well, they have done some kind of a past life regression. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good, depending on what their experience was with the facilitator. So if they had a negative experience, then we talk that through, like what happened, how were you prepared to kind of figure out what was going on with that, and then we do a past life regression first before we try to do an LBL. That is the one thing about the life between lives is generally it's good that you have done a past life regression first. So if they haven't done one of those, I do one of those first to see how their system works with the process. Because in life between lives regression, the typical way of getting to the spiritual realm is you go to a past life, you go to the end of that past life where you die, you rise above out of your body and move into the spiritual realm. So you need to be able to get to a past life. I say that's the typical way because some people, we use the guidance that we're going to a past life and they don't go to a past life, they go straight to the spiritual realm. So then we're like, cool, all right, well, we're here.
Don't know how we got here, but there we are. So I want to just briefly touch specifically on the trauma aspect of this because I know you've been supporting trauma recovery for 35 years. So how do you use hypnosis and quantum healing alongside that, especially for people who might be a little nervous about going under or accessing other realms of consciousness? I find some people are worried about losing control. What would you say to somebody like that?
If somebody has significant trauma, the first thing I'm going to do is spend a little bit of time finding out, finding out what happens in their nervous system, what gets them dysregulated, do they know how to get themselves regulated again? Because that will tell me a lot. And then with past life and LBL, if somebody comes for the life between lives and they have significant trauma, generally I ask them who's their therapist that they're working with, and I connect with their therapist to find out where they're at in their trauma therapy. I don't
Makes
do
sense.
standalone trauma therapy anymore. I don't accept people for just trauma therapy because I wanna make space for doing the other work, and I couldn't do all of it, so I had to let go of something. So, generally, I'll find out who they're working with, or if they're not currently working with somebody, I'll ask to talk to who they did work with to find out kinda how did their work go? What do they need to have a sense of safety, to allow themselves to do this kind of work? So, I do my legwork to try to get a sense of what their starting place is. And then probably then the next thing I would do is say, well, let's just do a little induction where you get a sense of what it feels like to just allow your mind to relax so that you can open up to a different way of feeling. So I'll do like just a little mini process like that to see how that feels for them. A lot of times people are like, "Oh, well, that's just kind of like a guided meditation, right?" So what's the difference between guided meditation and hypnosis?
Good question, because when you say induction, and I've had a little bit of experience with hypnosis, that's the beginning of your hypnosis procedure, right? That's where you're kind of getting into that relaxed state and getting ready to do the deeper work. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the induction is, following the breath. It might be a progressive body scan where you start at the top and you talk through. It's very people who are yogis, it's like yoga nidra, where you're just allowing the muscles to relax as you move down the body. That's all about getting into the body so that the mind can relax. Now, I just thought of another answer to your other question about
Go for it.
readiness.
Uh-huh.
About readiness. If somebody is uncomfortable being in their body, they're not ready.
Oh, that's a great point, because so many, especially so many women, are definitely not comfortable in their bodies.
You got to be comfortable feeling your awareness in your body. And if that's uncomfortable, then you've got some more work to do around that. But I would say it's so worth it because once you can feel safe going into your body, first off, it really opens the door to clearing out trauma. Second off, you get to experience who you really are, not whatever you've come to believe that has contributed to you not wanting to be in a body, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, you have the perfect client come to you. Can you walk us through in simple terms what a session might look like? Like they come in with an unresolved trauma or issue. What happens next?
I'll use an example from this week because it's a really easy one and it's fresh
Okay.
on the top of my mind. This was a male client. I see both men and women, more women than men. But what's interesting is the men that come, they are ready and they know they're ready. So that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Anyway, lots of depression and stuck in negative thinking about himself and just wanting to break out of that, like knowing that there's something more. So this individual is being seen in regular therapy by another therapist. So I'm doing this as an add on to his other work. And so in the first session, I gathered history. There's there's just things that I say, it's hard for me to even put them down, like, but it's just adding in new information. It's like, "Oh, never thought about it that way," kind of a thing. Opening the person up to seeing their issues, so to speak, through another lens. And also, a lot of things that I say are about helping people understand the possibilities. Like, there's so much possibility with this work. So he walks out of the first session going, I just feel so hopeful. And this guy's been
Wow.
depressed for a long, long time and feels like a failure, right? And so we decided that his next session would be a quantum session. And we set the intention for his quantum journey of living, I think it was something like passionately living my heart's desires. That's what it was. So and I had no idea where he was going to go in his quantum. We just kind of left it open. I didn't know if he was going to access another lifetime. He said he has a sense that he has a past life as a musician because from very, very young, he was drawn to it and has been passionate about it his whole life, so my hunch was he probably does, right? So I'm thinking he's gonna access this other aspect of him in this other lifetime who's already an amazing musician, and he's gonna get all of that energy and bring it in. Instead, he accessed his future self, who's already an accomplished musician.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
so he blended with that energy. There were some messages from his future self that really had to do with, look, this is how it's going to turn out. Like, relax, enjoy where you're at. You're going to get there, kind of a thing, you know?
Right.
And,
Everybody needs that kind of message, right?
right. He was shocked. He was like, "That is not what I expected to have happen." And so then we came back, and now the energy of his future self is active in his
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
And so he walked out the door with that. And so that's 2 sessions, the first session is a lot of going over information so that I have a full picture. And while I'm doing that, I'm feeling into my own intuition about what's going to be most helpful. I listen to my own guides. As somebody's telling me something, my guides will give me a poke like, oh, like, that's gonna be important. So then I just make notes of what's gonna be important, and then afterwards, I give the person the feedback. "Well, these were the things that my guide said are gonna be important. How's that feel? Where do you wanna
Right.
start?" So it's kind of like that.
Great. So, how do you make sure that you're not bypassing some very real emotional layers while you're working on these deeper energetic or soul levels? Can you talk more about that?
It's all connected. It's all connected. So, yeah, there is a thing called spiritual bypass, right? Where it's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna give myself positive affirmations," and it's a way to avoid working with what's actually there that needs your attention. You can probably hear in my approach, there's not much avoidance going on. Like,
No.
we're going right at it. The forms I have people fill out, I ask for a lot of information because we want to unearth whatever is there to give it an opportunity to move out, because this is really about freeing yourself to live from your brilliance. So we're
Right.
not going to avoid anything.
Okay. So, do you think there are any misconceptions about hypnosis and trauma work that you wish would just disappear?
Well, there are misperceptions about hypnosis. For instance, some people think that, you can give me a suggestion that's going to make me do things that I don't really want to do, right? It doesn't work that way. Yes. Right. Yes, suggestions are given, but if your conscious mind is always online, and so if you don't consciously want to have that be part of your behavioral repertoire, it's not going to be. So there's there's things like that. A lot of times people will get confused about, well, was I really hypnotized? Because I was fully aware of the fact that I was sitting in the chair, and I'm like, yep, you were. It's a dual awareness thing. Hypnosis and trauma, they're recovering lost memories, not my thing. I'm not about going and searching. If the psyche has tucked something away, it knows that it's not time yet. So if it's time, yes, it will reveal. And I guess if it's gonna reveal, best with an experienced therapist, right? Where you
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
get the support, not only from me, but, I mean, when I do these sessions, my guides are present, source energy is present, like, there's so much holding going on to create a sense of safety that if something big emerges, it's just like, "Yay, let's be done with that."
A lot of the listeners of this podcast are midlife and their nervous systems have been through it careers, caregiving, health stuff, grief. How can this kind of work actually feel regulating instead of overwhelming for someone whose system maybe is already a little tired or worn out?
You said grief, and I want to speak to grief for a minute because if you have grief in your current lifetime that is just not resolving, that can be really associated with other lifetimes as well. And when you're stuck in grief, your system will stay downregulated. It's really hard to want to engage in life. And so that would probably be a starting place for me with somebody if they're like, I feel really stuck. I don't even want to be here anymore. Suicidal stuff is very well addressed with this work because if someone has experienced a lot of suicidal ideation in their lifetime, they've likely had other lifetimes with the same issue. And so doing the work now clears it across all of those and also kind of checks the box on the soul contract for learning how to deal with that life circumstance. Okay, so if your system tends to be down regulated, I'm going to spend a little bit of time going, well, what are the tools you already use? What are the strategies you already use to, so I'll start there. Then I will say that once somebody does move into the vibration of their higher self, because it recalibrates your energy, that also impacts the nervous system. So that's that whole working from the outside in rather than the inside out. So some people will think, well, I need to have all of these things in place before I can move out. And that's not necessarily true.
Love for you to share some of the outcomes you see when people do this work with you, if you can. And I know it's more than just I feel better, but what actually shifts in their lives or their relationships or their sense of self?
So a lot more clarity is a big piece. When you move things out and you're more able to access your higher self and your brilliance, there's just more clarity about what the next step is. There's a sense of awe that you carry into your life. There's just such a different perspective, like the human struggle's still there. If you've got a difficult person in your life, but it's just that when they're doing what they're doing, because you've received a healing on a vibrational level, it doesn't have the same place to land, right? That would lead to whatever your reactions are. Interpersonally, things can really change. If there's something, if someone has a problematic person in their life that's related to karma in another lifetime, if they clear that, suddenly that other person isn't being a jerk to them anymore. And it's like, this is weird because the energy is gone around it. The other person doesn't even know why they're being a jerk to you. They just are because it's carryover, right? So relationships can change, health, big health shifts for people in terms of decreased body pain, increased motivation to do the things that they've always wanted to do to take better care of their body, but they just can't get themselves to do it.
Sounds familiar.
There are cases, I'd have to think about my folks, but there are cases where physical conditions have completely resolved
Hmm.
as a part of it. Because remember, when you move out into that field, you are in the frequency of pure source love. It is the most powerful healing energy that there is. It's the energy that is channeled for Reiki.
Hmm.
Um, and it's I mean, when we recalibrate the tissues and the bones and the cells, they get new messages,
Hmm.
like how they're meant to be functioning,
So
right?
it sounds like this is sort of the process that you go through from just surviving to what you call thriving and beyond, is really stepping into that bigger energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
What are some of the most common shifts you witness in maybe midlife women specifically that you've worked with?
Sometimes the clarity that you get is it's time to make a big shift in your life and get out of the relationship you're in. That's the warning. There's another warning. I mean, I actually had a client not long ago, about a month ago, say to me, "Your work should come with a warning label." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Because it's like when that opens up, there's certain things in your life that you're like, I can't be there anymore. I can't do that anymore. It might mean you change your job. But I would say if that happens, you've known all along that you were meant to make that change. You just didn't have the courage to do it yet. And your soul shows it to you and says, Look how your life can be if you step through that."
All right. So if somebody's listening and thinking, is that level of healing even possible for me? What would you say to them?
I would say that we would start with that belief, because if you're thinking, "Is that possible?" that means that you're also thinking, "It won't work for me." And I would say, "Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that you are the exception to the rule, that you are uncurable?" Like, you learned that somewhere, because we don't come into the world believing that.
Yeah, very
So
true.
I would start there.
Okay. I think that's a great place and a great comment to make because anybody who's been a coach or in coaching hears that all the time. This isn't going to work for me. I don't think this is something that's going to be helpful for me. And when they have that belief, it's like they shut off any possibility of being able to make a change. And so it seems like that's sort of one keystone in this whole process is just believing that something different is possible for you.
Right, and really understanding that that belief came from somewhere. It is a lie, and let's just figure out where it started and pull out the root of that and see how that feels. We don't have to do any of this other stuff. Let's just see how it feels to not have that belief anymore.
How would your multidimensional work, whichever modality you choose,
Uh-huh.
help someone? We talk a lot in my podcast about perfectionism and wanting to be the good girl, all of these sort of cognitive biases that we have. How would this work help somebody who is suffering from that stop waiting for the perfect version of themselves and just start living the lives that they have now?
When you move into the more expansive part of yourself, what happens is the striving just kind of goes away because there's this awareness that you already are what it is you're looking for. That was really the key for me because I'm a recovering achiever type. And, I felt loved if I was getting the gold star. And I've done a lot of work around that, and yet it'll still creep in every once in a while. So I just remind myself, you're looking for the gold star again, Kathy. Once you're in your soul state and you actually feel that, it's like, huh, there's nothing else I need to do. Like I can just be. And so then what we do is we bring that energy back into now and let it move with you as you go to the next thing. It's never about perfection. I will say from the LBL work, we know that we actually want to have the challenges. The challenges give us a reason to want to expand again, right? And so if we didn't have the challenges, there would be none of that kind of contraction, there'd be no contraction, there wouldn't be the desire to expand. So they serve a purpose. We're also here to learn about human emotion. So we all come in wanting, as on a soul level, we have a curriculum. If you've had a lot of experiences in your life where you felt it wasn't safe to speak up, you chose that curriculum. And how do you know that? Because it keeps showing up in your life. It wouldn't keep showing up if it wasn't a lesson you were working on. And if you do start standing in your brilliance and speaking up, then the challenges will decrease because you've learned the lesson. So we don't come with just one lesson to work on. We come with multiple because, if
Mhm.
you master one, it's like, hey, I'm still here. Now what do I do? But we're also trying to understand human emotion because in the spiritual realm, it's not the same when it comes to emotion. So we're wanting to understand things like anger, revenge, jealousy, envy. We want to understand what does that feel like and what drives that and all yeah, so it's about that too.
All right. For the people listening right now who are really leaning in and thinking, okay, I'm interested, what are some of the different ways they can access what you offer? I mean, we can start with your book, Stand in Your Brilliance, right? Who did you write it for? And how do you recommend people use the book?
Mhm. So I basically wrote the book for people who would never come and do the one-on-one work, but are, like, feeling called to heal, right? So I took the main things that I do in my one-on-one work, and I put them in the book. So there's a lot of introduction to there's a chapter on regulating your emotions and a chapter on past life regression and LBL and quantum healing. There's techniques for energy healing in there. And so the way it's laid out is there are exercises throughout the book that are reflection exercises. So it's a combination of information and working with the information. But more than anything, it's an inspirational message to tune people to the vibration of their soul. It is infused with energy. I've had people say, "I just carry the book around. I haven't even read it. I just carry it around because it makes me feel good." So, yeah, that's who I wrote the book for, anybody who's ready to see the truth of who they are.
Now, you do one-on-one sessions. You mentioned that just a few minutes ago. It sounds like they're for people who've done a lot of their healing work already and just ready to step into their brilliance. So, who would you say the ideal person for that one-on-one level of work is? And what would that sort of container look like?
So, like you just said, somebody who, has done their trauma recovery work and maybe they're already working as an intuitive or some kind of a healer. I work with a lot of coaches, other therapists who are wanting to expand their therapeutic work into doing this. What it looks like if somebody wants to do one on one is there's a few different avenues. If they know they wanna do LBL, then there's a package for that. If they know they wanna do quantum, there's a package for that. If they're not quite sure and they wanna have some time to figure it out, then there's a package for that where we set aside 5 hours and we use that in whatever way unfolds. And so that's how you do the one-on.
Okay. Now, you also have online courses and a group mentorship. Can you tell us about the Stand in Your Brilliance 7-week online course and what does it help people do? And how is it different from like a one-on-one session with you?
Right. So the course goes across 7 weeks. It covers kind of the similar content areas as the book, meets 7 weeks in a row for an hour and a half, where there's a teaching component. That's probably 60% of it. And then there's an opportunity for coaching and support in that group format. So it's done as a live meeting format where you're on screen with everybody else. And then you can ask for support around whatever issue that particular module is about. Also, I do processes with the whole group in the different weekly sessions. And so there's an opportunity to go, well, this is what happened for me. What does that mean? Or it didn't work for me. How come? Or, things.
Right. Didn't work.
And then an opportunity to hear other people and what their experience was. Because what I learned when I did group regression work at the very beginning, because this was not something I ever thought I would do, and I was super logical and skeptical, and I was that person, like, this is not gonna work for me. So my very first group past life regression, the person did it, the therapist. We sat in a group of 4 and they were like, "Okay, talk about what you experienced." And in my head, I'm like, "I got nothing. So this is not good." So I said, don't start with me." So the other people started, and as they talked, I was like, wait a minute, did get so
Hmm.
listening to others, you become aware of what it actually is when you get guidance. And plus, as you listen to them, your guides and your higher self is going tap, tap, tap on your shoulder, like, pay attention. We gave you that.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to know about the whole getting guidance thing that I want to bring up, your guides are also trying to figure out how to work with you so that you get the information. It's not just you trying to figure out how to connect with them, they're trying to figure out what's going to work. So think of it as a relationship that you have, and you're both trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because so often I hear people just think that the information is going to just drop into their heads or their life is just going to magically change. It's not necessarily magic. And the guides aren't here to dictate, right? I mean, it is a relationship. You can say no thank you to anything you get, right? You can take it or leave it. But if you're not ready for that back and forth and figuring out how the two of you can work together, I think you're always going to be a little stuck.
You are. And I can tell you a personal story about that. My very first LBL, when I was standing in front of, like, a master guide to get some direction, I literally felt myself going, "I'm not listening to this. I don't wanna do any" and I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, yeah, I mean, it's your choice what you
Yeah,
do with it.
absolutely. And so if someone's like really interested in working with you, where should they start? The book, the course? How do they kind of decide what's the best avenue to start with?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I am gonna do, a webinar or a masterclass thing in February, and I know you're gonna share that information with them. That could be fun. Getting the book and working with some of the things in there. I think what you do is you check in with yourself, like, what speaks to me the most right now? Would I rather get more information with a little bit of processes before I do anything more than that?
It's funny, when we were earlier talking about the person who said, "I just carry the book because it makes me feel good." I think those are the things you wanna look for when you're trying to make a decision like this. You know, where is my attention drawn to first? I know there have been times when I didn't buy the book or, do any of the pre-work. I just jumped right in. I'm like, "This is for me. I'm ready. Let's do it." And then there've been other times where I wanted to read the book and then do the free thing and then take the course and then maybe do some one-on-one. So you really have to kind of figure out what is exciting to you, where your energy is being drawn. And you did talk about your free upcoming webinar, which I know my listeners are definitely going to want to know about. So, can you share a little bit more about what it's called and what this course is going to be covering?
Sure. So it's called Three Keys to Standing in Your Brilliance. And the subtitle's super long, but it's about opening to the resonance of your soul, accessing the quantum field, and then manifesting a divinely guided, joy filled life. So the keys will go across the first one. We're working with beliefs. I will tell you, you probably haven't worked with beliefs in the way that I do it. You might wanna check that out because I use a process that comes from the different trauma therapies that I'm trained in. Then we move into the second key, which is about past lives and understanding the importance of clearing things across lifetimes. And then the third key is about embodying the quantum field. That's what the master class is about. There are some processes during the master class. And then I'll also introduce at the very end the course, which is a 7-week course that will start mid March.
Okay. And who would you say the webinar and ultimately your course is sort of perfect for?
Oh my gosh, if you're listening to this and there's something in you that's saying, "This sounds amazing," even if you've got that little voice going, "Yeah, but maybe I'm not ready," or maybe it's not gonna work for me, I would say come to that master class. It's another 75 minutes to hang out together in the vibration. And that's something I really do wanna say to people, whatever you decide to do, move into what feels good vibrationally to you, and if you can't feel vibration, like, you might be going, "What do you mean feel vibration?" There's words that can describe vibration, right? Like, it might we can have fun with this, Holly. What would be some words you would use to describe vibration? It might be warm, open, still, energized? What are some words you can think of for
Yeah.
vibration?
When I think of it, I think of being sort of my interest, but also there's something in my soul that's sort of drawn to a certain area. I can't explain it. I don't know why. Um, I have an interest in something, or if it keeps coming up for me, if I keep seeing something or feeling something or hearing something, then I know that's an avenue I've definitely got to trust. And the other thing too is that this whole opportunity, this feeling the energy is really kind of your intuition sort of speaking to you too. It's like when you learn to trust and listen to those nudges, life actually gets a whole lot easier. And decisions like this are a whole lot easier to make.
Exactly, exactly, and, if you think about how you're feeling when you look at a sunset, or how you feel when you're standing in front of a beautiful piece of art, or holding my grandbaby, I mean, you can feel like even as you imagine doing those things, what happens is we have these energy circuits called radiant circuits, and when you just think of a sunset, they activate and your vibration shifts. So it's these kinds of little tricks that I teach people to just go to a better feeling place. I'm still working on my seeing, and it's getting better and better all the time, but I don't always see things. I just know them or I feel them.
Yeah.
And so I think that helps for people who don't see, they're not really clairvoyant, to work with some of these other processes to recognize that you are intuitive. It just comes to you in a different way.
Yeah, that's a super important part because I can't tell you how many times somebody has said to me, I don't hear anything, or I don't get images, or I don't get, I don't see these movies in my head or whatever. But you can just have a feeling, right? And I love that you brought up sort of claircognizance. I just know. I don't know how I know. This information is just something I have now. I'm going to share it with you. So it's important to understand there are lots of ways to get information, and there's no one right way to do it.
Doing these kinds of processes opens those channels up back to kind of what changes for you. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it opens up
Yeah.
those channels.
And I love that you're giving people a way to sort of taste the work that you do and then choose for themselves if they're ready to go a little further. That's such a self trust move. So that's fantastic. Well, Kathy, this has been a rich conversation. Thank you for bringing not just your professional experience, but your whole heart and your belief in what's possible for other people, especially after trauma. And for anybody listening, we're going to have links to all of the resources that we talked about in the show notes. So you can find Kathy's book, Stand in Your Brilliance, or you can learn more about her one-on-one sessions and definitely the multidimensional work. I would definitely check that out. And I will make sure you have an opportunity to sign up for her free webinar. And then you can explore the Stand in Your Brilliance 7-week online course and see if it's right for you. Plus, if you head to the show notes, I'll share a free offer that Kathy is going to give to us. It is Remembering Your Truth Quantum Journey. And this gift is a guided quantum process for expanding consciousness. And I'll be really honest with you. I listened to it again this morning and I love it. Kathy guides you on a gentle journey that really helps you let go of the busyness of life and access that more peaceful, nurturing energy and resonate with the vibration of your soul. And as you come into this resonance with your soul, you're really able to tap into the love and support of your deepest self. Now, before we wrap up, Kathy, is there one message you'd like to leave with the person listening who's done so much healing already, but still sort of doubts whether they can ever fully live from their brilliance?
You totally can. You totally can. There's so much more that you already are. Okay. So just trust that it's already there. And if you've done a lot of healing work, then let yourself feel excited about this prospect of accessing who you are completely in all of the dimensions and what that might mean in terms of what you're bringing to the world. Also, you're never alone. You have so much support. So, if you're contemplating a big change in your life, know that you're not doing it by yourself.
That's so important and a great message because I think so many of us do feel alone when we are standing on the precipice of making a big change. It can be scary. So knowing that you've got the support of other people there that are going through it too is the most important thing I think you can have.
Yeah. And when you step off that ledge,
Ugh,
you're gonna be carried. You will be carried. Just trust that.
it's going to work for you, right?
It's totally gonna work for you.
Kathy,
Yeah.
thank you again for being here. And to all of you listening, thank you for spending this time with us. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your own timeline, and remember you're not here just to function. You're here to shine. Head to the show notes to get all the goodies we talked about today and to learn how to connect with Kathy. I'll share all her social media links in there as well. So thanks again, Kathy.
You are so welcome. It was fun.
I think it was fun too. And thanks to everyone listening. Take care and bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to How to Lose the Weight. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you found value in this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It really helps the show reach more women like you who are ready to step into their power. For more insights and inspiration, follow me on Instagram at Holly Toscanini or visit hollytoscanini.com. Until next time, remember, stop waiting and start living.